We're going to talk about 5 ways to build classroom culture remotely through games. Now, this can be used as a short-term supplement. Maybe you have to move your course online temporarily, or maybe you are normally an online teacher and all of your instruction is already online. You can use some of these games to develop class culture that way. Also, maybe you are a bit of a teacher. You do a bit of both. You're hybrid as well as in the classroom. So these tips, these tools, these different games you can use in your classroom to develop that class culture online. I'm Dustin Stats from Board Gaming with Education, so let's get into the list. So before I get started with the list, I know a lot of teachers and a lot of families, a lot of communities are dealing with the global crisis right now. And I want to send my best wishes to you and your family. I really hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying healthy. Hope you're staying strong. I know I wanted to lean into ways with Board Game with Education to help teachers in this type of situation or families in this type of situation talk about how to use games. So that's why I'm making this list. We're going to talk about those 5. So let's get right to it. Number 1. All right, so the first one, I'm really excited to talk about this one because it came out of a conversation that I had with Jonathan Cassie from Game Level Learn. And this is world building or narrative based games. We talked about a couple examples and I'm going to share those examples with you too in our remote adventure a couple weeks ago. I'll have the link down at the bottom if you want to hear that whole discussion. We get into some other topics around game-based learning and remote learning through games as well. So be sure to check that out. But let's talk about world-building games or narrative-based games. So we shared 2. One was Story Cubes. So with Rory's Story Cubes, it has different little images on the dice. And you can roll those dice and the images show up. So what you could do with this game is pair students up, roll the dice. You can do a video of this, rolling the dice, and then ask the students to write a story based on the dice that are rolled. You can have a lot of different things you can play around with here. You can ask one pair of students to start the story, another pair to continue it, or you can have a pair of students write the entire story based off the dice, and then have another pair of students write a story based off the same dice and see how the stories are different. Really cool. I've used it in my writing classes in Taiwan when I taught university students there for English language learning, but I think this is a really fun game that you can use. Another game that Jonathan Cassie shared was called Storymatic. Very same principle or similar principle, I guess, with cards. So the cards give you ways to kind of start to develop your stories. So be sure to check out those 2 examples. The next one I'm really excited for because Jonathan Cassie developed this one on his own. It's called When at Last We Are Together Again. And this takes role-playing games. So role-playing games are a great thing you can do online. A lot of people already play role-playing games online remotely with voice chat or other tools online. But this game, John developed specifically for students, for class sizes of about 30 students, larger class sizes, larger role-playing groups. And all you need to play is a deck of cards. So be sure to check that out. That will also be in the link. It's called When Together We're at Last Again. In this role-playing system, students draw a card and they develop or write a response, how they would respond to this setting that the card creates for them. Each round, a different student is highlighted as a way to respond to that situation. All the other students support them. So it's really cool at highlighting one individual student at a time, also asking students to give support in some way in the adventure. So it's used for an indeterminate length of time, so you can start it and end it whenever you want, which is really cool. The idea is to end it when we're all back together in class again. So really awesome. Check that one out. A couple other examples are more classic ideas. One is called Exciting Sponge. And this is where you take an item, like a pen, and you create a story based on the pen. So you can do a couple different things with this. You can ask students to meet remotely in your class and have one student show an object, ask another student to create a story, and continue the story that way. Or you can have one student show an object, one student's telling a story, the next student shows a new object, and they have to integrate that story into or that object into the story. And the last one, very similar to Story Cubes or Storymatic, you can ask students to do a Google image search of a different type of image. You can ask them to only search for black and white images and have them all add their images to an online platform that you use, and then ask students to create a story based off of those images. So again, these are different narrative-based games and world-building games that you can do in your class. Number 2 includes tools or classroom tech tools that teachers already may be using in their class, and that's Kahoot or Quizizz. These are quiz platforms where you can upload questions and students compete with each other through a game-based quiz. So a really excellent resource from day-to-day instruction and ways to review. I think this would be a really cool tool to use online as well, because you can ask students to create their own questions and add them to the quiz, or you can create questions about yourself or do theme-based quizzes each week. So these are some different ways to integrate these usual tech tools or tech tools that a lot of teachers are familiar with remotely. Number 3 is what we're all about at Board Game with Education. We're a podcast that talks about board games and using them in classrooms or using board games for learning. So I have a list of a few different board games you can use to build classroom culture remotely or online. So the first one over here, we have Codenames. We have 3 different versions right here, but there are several versions. I think there's a Marvel version, a Disney version, a Harry Potter version. So this is a word game or a word association game that you can use with your students in class. So what you do is you take a 5x5 grid of words and you have to ask your students to guess the word. So you might give them a clue like tropical. So first you would give the number of clues, 2, and tropical. Now in this grid, what 2 words do you think would be associated with tropical? So you might have said parrot and Hawaii. If you did, awesome job. You got it correct. If you said Hawaii and Pacific, you're wrong. Okay, so you have to be careful which clues you give. My clue maybe wasn't the best clue because maybe you could have chosen Pacific. You're trying to get your students to guess more than one word at a time. So you have to be careful because some words might be connected to each other. So really fun, really great game to use. I think you can use this as a way to develop class culture by asking your entire class to participate. You take a picture of the 5x5 grid, you put it online, you give your clue. The students need to guess 3 of the 25 words, and you ask them to vote on what words they might guess. So you'll give them a clue, and out of those 25, you'll ask them to vote. And the top 3 win. So then you reveal the top 3. Are they correct? Are they wrong? Some of them can be a spy, which means you lose automatically. So really fun, cool game to use to develop classroom culture and play a game together as a class. The next one over here, Werewolf. So this is one night Ultimate Werewolf. Very similar to the traditional Werewolf. You could do both. So they're really a lot of fun. If you're not familiar with Werewolf, maybe you're familiar with Mafia. So essentially in this game, one of the players or a few of the players are werewolves and the other players are villagers or townspeople. And you're trying to either find the werewolves, or if you're the werewolf, you're trying to eat all the villagers. It is a hidden role social deduction game, which means your roles are hidden from the other players. No one knows who they are, and you're trying to deduce who the other players are based on actions they take in the game. Each round consists of a night in the game, and after the night's over, someone from the village disappears because a werewolf eats them, or they find a werewolf, and you continue each round of the game to figure out who wins. Now there are special roles in the game, a lot of different special roles. You can check them out online. There's a list on Wikipedia of all the roles. So this is really cool because you could play it day to day. You could ask students to play once a week, and you can play the whole game one time a week, or you can continue it throughout the week. Werewolf is another great game. The third game I have, Strike a Pose. So I have not used this online, but I think it could make for a really fun game to play online. In the game, you have to strike a pose based on an object or based on a thing. So for example, it might ask you to strike a pose like an alligator. So you might have students that do this to strike a pose like an alligator or like this. Or it might ask you to strike a pose like a whale. How do you strike a pose like a whale? It's really fun because you see the players, or in this case your students, getting very creative on ways to strike a pose. You ask them to take a picture of their pose and upload it online, and then everyone has to guess what pose they are striking. So really cool idea. Again, strike a pose. Check that one out. Another good example. Other one, I have one example of a game over here. It's Railroad Inc., which is a roll and write game. These are really fantastic games because they come with a sheet that you roll and write on. So if you're familiar with the game Yahtzee, it's that type of game where you're rolling dice and you're creating your board. So there are a lot of different roll and write games that you can check out online. You can order one and play it remotely with your class together because they can just have their sheet on their own and you can have your own sheet as well. Another game I have is Just One right here. So Just One is a clever word game, party word game, where you ask players to, again, find the word or guess the word. So in this game, everyone gives a clue related to the word. So you might get the word nest. So everyone will write a clue related to the word nest. So someone might write eggs, spider, home, and bird. So bird, we have two of the same clues. So you lose that as a clue and you cannot guess the word using birds. So you only have home, spider, and eggs, and you have to try to guess the word nest. Again, another fun game you can play remotely with your class, maybe all at once on a video call. Really, really cool game to play. Now, the next one, I don't have a copy here with me, but I think it's a really cool, clever idea you could use called Timeline or Card Line. In this game or these games, Card Line, you have maybe an animal, and it gives you the body weight, the height, and you have to guess whether the next animal is taller or heavier than the first one. So the next animal, you add your third animal, you have to guess, is it in the middle, on the other side, maybe taller, or on the other side, shorter. So you have to guess which way. So you can have students play this game as well. Timeline is the same thing, but you're guessing about when an event happened. So maybe you have an event, and when did it take place? Well, did the next event take place before, or did it take place after? So you can have students vote and try to guess where the events take place, where the events took place. So those are some examples of games. I will leave a link down below. It is an affiliate link from Amazon, so if you do buy through there, it really helps support our podcast and our channel. So be sure to check those out. If you have questions about using these games, be sure to reach out to me too. But we're gonna move on to number 4. Number 4 are some traditional icebreaker party games. These are some examples of games that you can play remotely. So they work remotely as well as in person. Icebreakers maybe you are familiar with. The first one being 20 questions. You can have your students try to guess something and you have it hidden, right? They have 20 questions to get the answer and you have to respond yes or no. So my question might be, is it bigger than my fist? And you would answer yes or no. Maybe I'm thinking of a box of cards. So your students would try to guess a box of cards by asking yes or no questions. The next one is remote bingo. You can have your students fill out a bingo sheet and track the things they do remotely. And the first one to get bingo wins. So there are a lot of different traditional icebreaker games or party games that you might have played before and can be used remotely as well. So I will link an example of a lot of different remote party games in the description below as well. Number 5, the last one, are virtual escape rooms. So maybe you're familiar with doing breakout EDU normally in your classroom with different boxes that students have to unlock in an escape room experience. But this one is a virtual one. So you can create different escape rooms online and have students go through different websites or go through a website you created. You can also do this through Google Forms. You can create a virtual escape room through Google Forms. Integrate different puzzles that students have to complete to maybe understand or learn some content. You can do this as a way to help your students reinforce some learning, or you can just do it for fun. Create a different theme for your virtual escape room. So again, I will leave some links down below. Those are some resources you can check out, some different blog posts that people have put together for following step-by-step instructions on how to create a virtual escape room. So again, check out the description for those. So those are my 5 ways you can build classroom culture remotely through games. My favorite are the board games. Obviously, I think I paid the most attention to that one. I have the most experience using those in class already. So if you have any questions or anything, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your feedback and really hope you are staying safe and healthy out there. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you again.